right, well, welcome. Doing a forward bending class today and kind of studying our relationship with our edge, which the forward bends really push us into our edge when we're folding and becoming more compact. So some of us tend to linger on the kind of the not doing enough side of the edge, and some of us tend to linger on the overdoing side of the edge. So you might already know where you reside, having practiced yoga for as long as you have. You might not, but you can use that kind of lens today when you're practicing to kind of study how you show up in these poses. And so I'm going to challenge you, if you do discover which side of that edge you kind of gravitate to, I'm going to challenge you to explore the other side of it. So if you're an underwhelmer, you're going to just gently push yourself a little bit deeper, not to the point of pain or injury, of course. And if you're an overwhelmer, you're going to back off a little bit and just kind of take your practice in a new way that way. And we're going to kind of work with the spaces and the poses, giving ourselves a little more support so that in places that we might need a little more contact or sense of touch, feeling of resistance, we're going to use props to help us get there. All right, so that's my spiel. It's the 10th today, I believe. So go into your dominant cross-legged position and give yourself some time to just really arrange yourself there so you feel very supported. Your spine is able to stand up tall, and in alignment, your skull finds its way right above the spine. And you'll know when you've kind of placed the skull because it feels a little more weightless. Usually the adjustment, as we know, is kind of moving the head slightly back. And that can be kind of an over cue. So you might just think about your face moving toward the back of the head or your chin moving toward the base of the skull to make that adjustment a little more subtle for yourself. And then take a moment to move your shoulders in line with your hips, and you can just keep your hands on your lap. And close your eyes and look away from your brain. And just kind of filling the parts of your body that are meeting the floor, meeting the props with your own attention. And letting the buttocks take root into the floor. Letting the tailbone and the sitting bones root down like a 3-prong plug. Dropping the shoulders, relaxing the lower jaw, softening the tongue back to its root, letting the tongue rest at the floor of the mouth. Releasing the skin of your face from the forehead to the chin. If we pay attention to the areas of the body that are really supported and grounded, we don't really have to work for that feeling of lightness or extension. It starts to just kind of find its way. Just like a little plant starts to emerge after it grows some little roots. Soften your belly. And just let your attention ride the next few waves of your breath, connecting your mind with the present here and now situation. Let's see if you can keep your shoulders rolled back as they are as you join your hands together in front of your heart. And on an exhalation, bowing toward your heart. Release your hands. Gently lift your head. Let your eyes come open. And welcome. We're going to do a lot of our practice reclining. And we are going to get there pretty quickly. But before we do so, we're going to kind of massage the spine with spinal rolls. We haven't done these in a while. We used to do them more often. Sometimes I just forget about things and then I remember them. So that's kind of the case here. Is I love doing this. I don't know why I stopped, and we're going to do it again. So you're going to kind of come to your mat the front edge of your mat so that you have the length of your mat behind you. And you'll just kind of sit up tall and hold your shins. And you can watch one of these that I do. I'm going to take an in-breath, sitting up tall, and then I'm going to exhale, tuck my chin, rolling my spine. I'm going to keep enough momentum to bring myself up. Okay, so that's all we're doing. In-breath, sitting up tall, exhale, tuck and roll. Just let the floor kind of wake up your spine. Just be playful about it. It's funny, this is something I used to think when I taught children's classes they would love, and the kids, just none of them could get back up. So they'd land on their back and not be able to get up. So I'm so happy when I teach this to adults, because most of us can create the momentum to get ourselves up. So just a couple more of these. If there's pain on your back, we're going to finish up soon, but just remember for next time, you might want to put a blanket down to kind of massage the spine. So the next time you're up, you can stay up. And we're going to set up a reclining series of hand to big toe poses. And we're going to need a few props. We're going to need, if you use one, a blanket for your head. We're going to use a strap for holding the foot. And we're also going to use the additional blanket kind of over the abdomen. And I have it folded kind of in the skinnier but thicker dimension. So you can create, it's probably I don't know, 2 inches of thickness, and it doesn't have to be very wide. So it just is enough to cover your abdomen. All we're trying to do is create a little gap filler. We're going to start with drawing the right leg in. Okay, so once you draw the right leg in, hopefully that blanket is connecting with your thigh and kind of filling the gap between your thigh and your torso. And I'm going to have you either take hold from behind the thigh with your hands, I'm not going to use the strap yet, or over the shin. So that's personal preference. And just extend your left leg on the floor. So in this position, I just want you to notice something. We are probably pretty distorted, all of us. So we have the right hip elevated, the left hip lower than the right. And we also have kind of a sunken feeling to the left hip and kind of an elevated feeling to the right hip. So there's some misalignments going on. So to fix that, I'm going to have you raise your left leg just about a ½ inch from the floor. And once we do that, you'll feel the right sacrum sitting down a little bit more, and you'll also feel it, the hips aligning, so the right hip isn't hiking as much anymore. Hopefully you can feel that. And so now you're just going to breathe with the leg. Keep holding the left foot from the floor. Breathe with the right leg, inviting the thigh into that blanket. Keep your chin tilting down. Send a streaming flow of energy through your left heel. Put your left toes above your heel. We'll stay another 5 breaths here. You might have a little bit of kind of a limited feeling in your right hip space. So see if you can inquire into that. Sometimes just bringing attention there is enough to get the hip to just soften a little bit. Sometimes it takes more time, attention, and breath. So just be with whatever's going on in your right hip. And with the next exhalation, gently lower your left heel to the floor. And now if you are holding the shin, take your hands to the back of the thigh. You're going to just do a little test for yourself. So keep your thigh really close to your body and see about extending the leg. And only extend the leg to the point where your thigh does not move away from your blanket. So it might mean that your leg does not fully straighten. For most of us, it does not fully straighten. But just hold it there for a few breaths. And now, because we do want a fully straightened leg, you're going to relax the knee so that you get your strap onto the sole of the foot right beneath the ball mounds. You're going to have 2 ends of the strap to work with today. So if you have a loop, you can undo your loop. And you want to hold the strap in a way that supports your grip so it conserves energy. So Wrap your hands, slide down your straps until your shoulders are sitting down. We don't want to be able to see shoulders in our peripheral vision. And then go find your straight leg, which might mean the leg comes away from the blanket. That's fine. So find your straight leg, but then bring it as close as it will come without bending. And you're going to be there. And here's one first opportunity to study your relationship with your edge. So some of us are to the point where we're pulling on the back of the knee and behind the ankle because we're overdoing. Some of us are kind of in this more complacent, I call it screensaver mode, we're underdoing. So wherever you kind of tend to linger or gravitate to in your poses, you're going to try to find kind of the equal and opposite side of that relationship. Okay, so just full disclosure, I'm an underwhelmer, so I always kind of gravitate to less. And so I always have to kind of remind myself to go a little deeper. And of course, I have to be discerning enough that I'm not going to dive into that zone where we're causing pain and injury. But I'm just going to bring my leg in a little closer. And just a few more breaths here. Okay, so we're going to go through all 5 Padangusthāsanas on each side. So to transition to Parshva, where we take the leg away from midline, I'm going to have you take the blanket over your belly and put it and just kind of wedge it underneath your right hip and buttock. Not the full buttock, just a little bit of the outer buttock so that you have a little bit of a cradle so that we don't go crashing down to our right hip side. We want to keep this sacrally level against the floor. And then you're going to take both straps in your right hand, wrap the hand, slide down the straps until your shoulder is on the floor. Reach your left arm sideways, perpendicular from the trunk. And then before moving the right leg, bring awareness to your left side body as an anchor. We don't want to tip it over. We don't want to uproot it. So on an exhalation, keeping your right leg straight, start to move the right leg off to the right. You're attempting to keep the foot as close to the shoulder line as you can, but not at the cost of bending the knee. So the leg is straight. That's our first kind of goal. The second goal is, the shoulder line. But straightness is first. Revolving your torso from right to left. Being a little more active with the instep of the right foot reaching out there, waking up the inner right leg that way. And make sure you stop before you feel heavier in your right shoulder, heavier in your right hip, heavier in your right sacrum. Strike that balance. Keep your chin tucked, keep your left leg activated. If you were standing in this pose, that left leg is the only thing between you and the floor. So it has to be in good integrity, good alignment, good action, good effort. Nice. Just one more exhale here. And then keeping some awareness of where the leg meets the floor, use that kind of as a fulcrum, bring your leg back to the upright centered position. Passing your straps to your left hand, wrapping the hand. Again, slide the shoulder back to the floor. Extend the right arm out sideways, perpendicular from the body, palm down. This version is not the twist, so we want to keep the right buttock glued to the floor, don't let it uproot. And on an exhalation, start to move the leg to the left. And only to the point where A, you can maintain the straightness, and B, you have the right buttock still glued to the floor. Your left leg is still your standing leg, so the left toes are not turning with the right toes. Left toes are still straight up and down above the left heel. And now you've been in this pose many times before. So are you back in the kind of the habitual memory of the pose? Or are you relating to it on a new level? Maybe you're backing off this time. Maybe you're adding a little bit more tension on the strap. And try to make something new about this pose you're doing right now. So now we're going to let momentum carry us. And we are going to roll over to left hip side. Right hip will come above left hip. You can keep that right arm extended out sideways. You can turn the right palm to face up. Now you're on the outer left foot. Leg is still very straight. Both legs are. And left leg is still your standing leg. So this is a big revolving pose. Try to get your shoulders even on the floor, even though the hips are no longer in that same alignment. Your hips are stacked, your shoulders are level with each other. Keep reaching out through the instep of the right foot. And as long as you can keep your right leg straight, you're continuing to gently coax it toward the shoulder line, which might still be a mile away, but that's the direction you're moving the leg in. Good. Now gently bring your sacrum back fully to the floor, your leg back upright. We're going to take the left foot and just bend the knee and put the left foot against the floor, put the right foot against the left thigh. And you can kind of leave your strap where it is. Don't worry about it. We're going to use it in a moment. So if it's hanging on the foot, that's fine. But take your left hand to the outer right ankle. Take your right hand to the outer right knee. And then you're going to re-extend your left leg. So you're supporting the right leg with your hands. Just make sure you're not feeling this in the knee, of course. This is a little right hip opener. So just gently rocking the shin from left to right. Just kind of moving in and out. You'll notice sensation is increased when you pull the knee in toward midline. And then come back to center, just kind of pause. Mid-shin ideally is aligning with the breastbone. And then see about gently just bringing both hands a little bit more pressure into the knee and ankle. So you're guiding that shin a little bit closer to the chest. It's like an inverted pigeon pose here, a couple breaths. So this might be where you stay. And if you want to go a little deeper, take your right hand, grab the strap ends that are still hanging around the right foot, hopefully. Let enough slack out and tuck your right forearm behind your head. So your head is lifted, your head is relaxing against your right arm, and your left hand is still holding your ankle. Okay, so 5 breaths. Last exhale. If you're in the arm behind your head version, you're going to sit forward enough you can unhook your arm. And we're all going to straighten that leg straight up in the air again. And this time I want you to bring your hands as close to the foot as they will go. It's okay if your shoulders pop up off the floor for this one. You might be able to grab the foot directly, but just make sure your leg is still straight, that you're not compromising the pose just to get there. And then just like we started, I want you to hover the left heel a ½ inch, just so we kind of equalize the sacrum. So bring the left heel just a ½ inch from the floor. On it, take a nice, big, healthy inhale. And then exhale, lift your head, bring your nose toward your knee, wing the elbows out wide, keep your legs straight. 5 deep breaths. Last exhale, inhale, you're going to sit back with the head coming down. Go ahead and soften the right knee. Put your strap over your belly. Step the right foot down. Extend the right leg. Unfold your arms. Just take a few moments absorbing the energy that follows, the sensation, the feeling of space in your right leg, comparing it to the left leg. You might even sense that your right heel is lower on your mat than your left heel. You might sense more hip turnout in your right hip. And then we'll check in with second side. So we're going to start with that blanket over the abdomen again, so we can fill that little gap as we hug the left leg in. So we're going to draw the left leg in, your choice if you're grabbing behind the thigh or over the shin. And then before we lift the right foot, just feel the imbalance. We have the left hip hiking. We have a crashing down right hip feeling. So to equalize that, just floating the right heel from the floor, 1/2 inch. And then the next 5 or 6 breaths, you're just softening into the left hip space. You're squeezing the left thigh toward the chest. You're tilting your chin toward your chest. Two more deep, long exhales. Make something happen on those exhales. Let something go, break through another layer of tension. And then after that second exhalation, slowly let your right heel come back to the floor. And now if you're holding shin, you're going to slip your hands behind your thigh. Keep the thigh on that blanket. Keep your thigh as close to your trunk as you can. And now see about extending the leg. It probably won't fully straighten, but just go right to your edge there. Just stay for a few breaths. Good. And now we will go find that straight leg. So you're going to find your strap. Maybe buried under your blanket, like mine is. And we're going to start with the leg overhead, the hands wrapping on the strap, and the shoulders on the floor. Find your straight leg, and then bring it as close as possible to the torso. Be active with your right leg. Remember the imbalances in the sacrum. Try to scrub up with the right heel into the right hip joint. Try to bring some false weight over to the left hip side. Keep your chin tilted down. Keep yawning open the back of the left knee and rolling the inner knee toward the foot side of your mat. And then where are you with that edge? Experiment with backing off, experiment with leaning in. There's that great phrase, the pose begins as soon as you want to leave it. So let's stay 3 more breaths. And after that 3rd breath, try to keep the closeness that you've established with the leg. You're going to pass your straps into your left hand. Before you do that, let's wedge that blanket under the left buttock. Just the edge of the blanket, just to kind of cradle you so you don't roll completely onto that left side for Pashtimothanasana. Both straps will be in the left hand. Hand can be wrapped. Reach the right arm out to the side. Check in with your right anchor points, your shoulder, hip, and heel. Keep them heavy as you start to exhale, left leg to the left. Keeping the leg straight, guiding the foot to the shoulder line. Bringing awareness to your sacrum, your back body. If you were lying in sand and you got up, you'd want to see an even imprint of your sacrum, of your shoulder girdle. Be aware of your standing right leg here. If the toes are turning out, you wouldn't be standing anymore. So keep your right toes directly over the heel. Keep reaching into the big toe ball mound and the inner heel of the right foot. Reach out through the instep of the left foot, waking up the inseam of the left leg. And now you've been in this pose many times before. And are we phoning it in? Are we here and now present and just trying something new, relating to it differently? Good. After an exhale, using kind of the anchor point through the back of the left leg into the floor as a fulcrum, guide your leg back overhead. And let your right hand grab the straps, wrap the knuckles, reach the left arm out. Slide your hand down until your right shoulder comes back to the floor. We don't want any floating shoulders. And then imagine your left buttock is Velcroed to the floor. We don't want to hear any ripping sounds as we move the left leg slowly to the right. Right toes stay in line with the heel. Don't let your right foot turn out. Right leg is doing its own thing. Roll your inner right knee to the floor. The gap behind the right knee, try to minimize that. Compact the leg down. Breathing. Left leg is straight. Roll the right inner thigh to the floor, 2 more breaths. Now you're going to let the weight of the left leg carry you onto your right hip. Roll to the outer edge of your right leg. Keep your left arm long and off to the side. Prasarita Tanasana. Remember, your right leg is still your standing leg, so straighten it out. It does not get to take a nap here. Reach out through the instep of that foot. Try to breathe some weight back to your left shoulder. Three more breaths. Leaning into those exhalations. Good. And now slowly move it back to center. All the way back. You can somehow leave the strap just kind of dangling from the foot as you bend the knee and grab hold of your outer left ankle and outer knee. The reason we don't grab the foot is because if you see what happens when you do that, you tend to sickle the foot. We kind of distort the shape of the leg. So grab the outer ankle rather than the foot, cup the outer knee, and then just gently rock side to side. Like you're sliding through space left to right, moving the shin toward midline and away. You can move that hip blanket out of your way. We don't need it anymore. And then you're going to pause with the shin as well lined up, middle of the shin with the breastbone, and just even pressure, kind of guiding the shin closer to the trunk. Tilt the chin in toward the chest. Soften your eyeballs. You might stay here, or you might grab those tails of your strap with your left hand, let out enough slack that you can prop the left forearm behind your head. You're going to sit back on the forearm even though your head is off the floor. You can keep holding with your right hand to support that ankle. And wherever you are, 5 breaths. And if you are doing the version of the arm behind your head, you have to exhale, sit forward enough to unhook the arm. We're all going to shoot the leg straight up. And for this final hand to big toe pose, bring your hands as close to your foot as you can. Shoulders can now pop off the floor if they do. Wrap your hands though so you have a good strong grip. Find your straight leg. Hover that right foot from the floor just to equalize the hips, the sacrum, the pelvis, just a ½ inch with the right heel above the floor. Big inhale, exhale, your head to your knee, wing out the elbows, 5 breaths, keep the legs straight. Last exhale, inhale, resting the head, resting the heel, bending the left knee, step the foot down, put the strap aside, extend your left leg. Take just a mini Shavasana here, unfold the arms. Try to grow the legs out long, let the heels be wider than the hips, the feet flopping out from big toes to small toes. Just sensing those awesome residuals from the Pashtimothanasana series, one of my favorite series in the whole yoga asana family. There's so much surface area in the legs. And when we work with that, it's just such a big influence on the mind responding with a similar sense of spaciousness and ease. Okay, as you're ready, you're just going to find your way onto your hands and knees. We're going to do just a few standing poses, starting with downward facing dog. So bring yourself into table, tuck your toes underneath. On an exhale, without the hips moving forward, extend your legs. And just closing the gap between your chest and your thighs. Curling the sitting bones up away from the heels. Rolling the inner knees back. Try to really insert your shoulder blades toward your chest. Think about the shoulder blades, the inner corners, the L-shaped corners, tilt them in toward the chest. You're coiling the shoulder blades. Extend the sides of the torso. Okay, where are you with your pose? Is it your habitual downward dog? Are you trying something different? Are you relating to it a little different? Maybe adding a little more, maybe backing off a little more. And then begin to tiptoe the feet toward the hands. Just become a rag doll here. Grab your elbows and your palms, dangling your skull, releasing your spine. Your knees can be bent. And then start to just kind of drift from side to side, swinging the arms gently. Feeling the response in the backs of your legs. And now slow it down enough that you can stop the swaying and drop the hands. And then taking your hands to your thighs, come all the way up. Tilt my camera here. So we're going to do Uttanasana. We're going to do it with a blanket spacer, kind of like an apron. So you can take a blanket that's more opened up than the blanket we used earlier. And you're just going to hold it across your thighs, right under, along the hip creases, not on the abdomen though. So kind of under the navel, along the hip creases. The idea here is when we fold forward, the abdomen is over the blanket and the thighs are under the blanket. Okay, so we don't want abdomen under the blanket. Your toes are in front of your heels, your feet are hip distance. And so you're going to lengthen your torso, lift your torso up and try to carry that length over the blanket. It will catch as soon as you fold deep enough, it'll catch. Again, your legs might not be completely straight, that's okay, but take the legs to your straightest. And if your arms want to dangle like empty coat sleeves, that's fine. If you want to grab elbows, that's fine. But just be here with this connector between your chest and your thighs. Feel the big breaths pushing into the back body because we have a little more force to the front body, a little more resistance. Maybe shake your head or rotate your chin in circles to get your neck to release if it feels a little stuck. Wag your chin around.
And now grab your hands somewhere behind your legs. So you might grab ankles, you might grab heels, you might grab the calf muscles, it really doesn't matter. But pull yourself in a little deeper, using your hands behind the legs somewhere. Go a little bit deeper. Keep the sitting bones curling up. After an exhale, releasing your hands, bend your knees, take your thighs in your hands, drop the blanket, just come right up with the blanket drop. Put your shoulders above your hips and just find your way into mountain pose, dropping the eyes closed, letting the feet softly root down into the floor. Just imagine you have little weights attached to all of your fingers, assisting the shoulders to drop. Try to lengthen the neck by lifting through the crown of the head. Keep your eyes softly pointed toward the cheeks. Unhinge your jaw. So being here with effort, but really turning the dial down as far as you can, the effort dial. So nice to take this spacious mountain pose as a little intermission from all this folding, just enjoying your space. Okay, so we're going to open the eyes. We're going to come into Prasarita Tanasana using a strap and our blocks. So the strap will be to kind of contain the feet, and the blocks will be, of course, to connect us with the floor. Some of us connect our hands directly, so you might not need your blocks. But you're going to make a loop that will support the width between your feet. So this is the wide standing forward bend. The width between the feet ideally is equivalent to the length of one of your legs. For some of us, it's not quite that wide yet, but just find your widest width for Prasarita. You don't want to be wider than one of your own legs though. That would be overdoing. And you're going to just put it around the outer arches, under the soles of the feet, and around the kind of the outer arches of the feet, right in front of the heel. And make sure you're aligning the toes, that you have the toes on the same line across your mat, and that your toes are in front of your heels. Okay, blocks are all ready to go. Hopefully you don't have to trip yourself up. Don't trip, be careful. So we're going to fold forward into the concave or flat lumbar position first, with the blocks underneath our shoulders. And just take some time to balance the weight bearing in your feet. Try to roll the skirting of the outer feet down, lift the inner arches, but suck the outer ankle bones in. Don't let the outer ankle bones go flying out. You have to resist them back in toward midline. And once your feet are balanced, take another breath, extend the torso, and then you're going to exhale into your deepest Prasarita Tanasana. So maybe the blocks come down, maybe the hands come all the way to the floor, maybe your hands start to move into line with the toes. And if that's the case, make sure your elbows squeeze in so they're only as wide as the shoulders. That'll help you keep your chest broad. Crown of the head points down. Another pose you've been in many times before. So check something new out. Maybe go a little deeper than you normally do. Maybe give yourself more space than you normally allow. Maybe bring the crown of the head a little closer to the floor. Maybe tuck a block under the crown of the head to give yourself some support that way. Legs are straight. Inner thighs rotate out across the front thighs to keep your knees pointing at your toes rather than knocking.
Keep descending or cascading the torso. And after this exhalation, come back to your long arms, your concave or flat lumbar spine, your blocks in your hands for support, for length. And then just narrow the distance between the feet so that you can safely step out. And then you can come all the way up. And just taking your mountain pose, if you can join the legs and feet, do that. Otherwise, keep your feet hip distance. And imagine you're standing against a wall, your skull, your shoulders meeting the wall, the tailbone moving away from the wall into the body, the thighs moving toward the wall, backs of the knees closing in on the wall. Just 3 breaths. Go ahead and blink the eyes open. We're going to come into Pashtimothanasana. So we're going to attempt to sit down and fold forward and try to fill the spaces in between the torso and the legs. So you're probably going to want to have your props really close by so you can use them to close the gaps, I should say. So a bolster is a good one. The lap blanket can be a good one. Like we did Uttanasana, you might enjoy putting the blanket between your thighs and your abdomen. That's a nice one. If you have a way to bring your head all the way down through some combination of props, which can include your fists. If you need to add some height, can include a block. If you want to add height, you can use a block. There's no wrong combination of props. So, and make sure you're sitting on a blanket so that your lower back is not already compromised. We have a nice upright starting position with the lower back. Legs and feet are together. You're kind of in this really nice 90-degree position, starting with this 90-degree upright torso, Dandasana. And then if you are using that blanket between your thighs and abdomen, again, make sure your abdomen clears the blanket. It's on top of the blanket, not below. And you're going to bring yourself forward, closing all those gaps down, finding a perch for your head. Maybe the arms can be passive, palms up. Maybe you want to use your hands for fists and pedestal for the forehead. But try to create some way to relax the shoulders, even if you do need to use your hands to support your forehead. Try to get the shoulders to soften. A lot of times the shoulders will kind of hover around the ears, not sure what to do. Relax the shoulders. So the legs will stay firm and active. We know that there's a tendency in our forward bends for the mind to get dull and sleepy and sloth-like. So the legs keep us attentive. So you're squeezing them against the floor, legs are firm, you're minimizing the gaps behind the knees, your toes are above the heels, you're actively holding the legs and feet. Meanwhile, that means the torso, the skull, the brain can be more passive. So every exhale, feel that gap closing between you and your legs, your torso and your legs. Modify the props if you need to reduce the height. Make sure to abide by that so we don't kind of lose that perfect edge. And again, check out how you're in the pose. Is it like every other time you've done this pose? Or are you trying something out? Changing your approach, making it fresh and new. We have a whole nother minute here. So hopefully you're in a sustainable, interesting pose. If the mind is absorbed, you're in a perfect pose for yourself. If your mind is wandering around, something should be adjusted somehow. 3 more deep exhalations. All the breath flows out. Looking forward on an in-breath, squeezing your stomach muscles around the central axis. Bring yourself up on an in-breath. And you can kind of deconstruct the setup. We're going to take reclining, upward facing Pashtimothanasana using a bolster or something similar in thickness and dimension to a bolster. So you might roll a couple blankets together. You might put a blanket over your 2 blocks as a way to improvise, side-by-side blocks. I would, if you're able to, it would be helpful to keep a blanket. We're going to try to put that blanket over the abdomen again. So if you can save a blanket for your front body, that would be great. So you're going to sit on the bolster. We'll just call it a bolster, even though it might be something else. And you're going to bring your shoulders and head down. So it's like a supported bridge pose to start with. Oh, my blanket is miles away here. So make sure you have your blanket and you're going to put it onto your belly. So above the hip creases. And let's just start with reclining child's pose. Draw the legs in one at a time. Hopefully when the thighs come close, it catches that blanket and you have that nice little spacer, that feeling of contact. And just hugging the legs toward you. You can grab the shins or the thighs, tilt your chin toward your chest. Soften into the hip joints. And then you're going to let go of the legs and just reach your arms overhead so that your palms face up. Your arms are fully straightened. And you're going to imagine you have little guitar strings coming out of your fingernails and connecting with whatever wall is in front of your fingernails and tightening those guitar strings. So you're getting really anchored in your upper body. Go ahead and raise your legs now. And finding your straight legs, let the weight of the legs drop in toward the blanket. Keep your chin tilted toward your chest. Keep your eyes pointed toward your cheeks. Every time you exhale, soften into the hip joints, feel the legs descending. Using those reaching fingernails to lengthen the sides of the torso. If your neck has become very gapped between the back of the neck and the floor, snuggle your chin back down to the collarbones. Five more breaths. After an exhalation, you can start to lower your legs. You might step the feet one at a time to save your back a little bit. And then you're gonna let your arms relax and keep sliding up toward your head side until your butt comes down. And once your butt is down, cross your ankles and rest the ankles on that bolster. And keep your blanket where it is. Unfold your arms. Restoring a lumbar curve to your lower back.
Knees are bent, ankles are crossed. Again, just enjoy spaciousness. Every time we do a forward bend, it's like squeezing a fist. And then when you release that fist, there's a rush of energy, a rush of sensation, rush of blood flow. Now we're going to move on to our side. I want to do a Supta Baddha Konasana to kind of soothe the back. So we'll set that up. If you have a bolster, you're going to turn it to run with the spine. You may need your blankets for hip support. You can always use your blocks for hip support. I like to always add a blanket on the bolster for my head. I like my head a little more tilted forward. You don't have to use a strap today. We're going to take the pose a little more passively just to quiet down the back body after all those forward extensions. And then when you recline back, just make sure to draw the buttocks away from the end of the bolster. Leave some space between your butt and the start of that bolster so the lumbar spine is clear. The bolster starts where the rib cage begins, the back body. And then make sure your head support is sufficient. We don't want chins wagging in the air. So build up the height under the head to tilt your tilt your skull toward the chest. Unfold the arms. Let your shoulders drape around the soft, rounded contour of the bolster. Look toward your cheeks. Imagine your breath like a fountain head. If we just puff the belly every time we breathe in, the upper lobes of the lung and the chest does not get the breath. So think about your belly having an iron t-shirt on so that the belly doesn't inflate any higher than the lowest ribs. And therefore the breath is forced to move up and to spread outward like a fountainhead. So this isn't like we're doing a pranayama right now. It's just an image to work with as you breathe normally. Just neutralizing the back. We'll just be here about 5 more breaths. Start to close the knees together. Use your fingertips. Let's walk the feet out wide and just be in this counter position for a couple breaths. And you're going to gently move to either side. Move your bolster away. You can set up for Shavasana and also make sure to include any movements that need to happen before we come into final resting pose of 0 effort, of stillness. You might like the bolster behind your knees. Just spend a little time with the
the alignment of the pose. Shavasana is a pose after all. Just extending your legs out nice and long, feet wider than hips, arms nice and long so that the arms don't touch the torso. Palms turned up, shoulders rolling down. Maybe rocking back and forth on the shoulder girdle to invite the shoulder blades to lift in toward the chest before finally releasing the shoulders down to the floor. Rock your head. Just encourage the back of the neck to lengthen. Sometimes a little support under the head is needed to get the neck to become longer. And once you've set the pose up, just start to excuse any remaining effort from the body. Just kind of in a systematic way, from your head toward your feet. Starting with the face. We all have a social mask that we wear. Just letting that mask fall away. Easing the skin of the face from the hairline down to the chin. Softening your lips, the cheeks, the cheekbones. Smoothing out across the brow line. Softening the throat. Witnessing the breath. Notice tension in the abdomen. Releasing the tension. Let the flesh surrounding your leg bones break free from the bones. Visualize your breath filling into the small, tiny spaces between the various working parts of your feet. And for these final moments in Shavasana, just being with whatever is here for you right now. Noticing anything you notice, allowing. You're welcome to stay longer if you like. If you're ready to come out, just start to draw in some deeper breaths, but without inviting any disturbance to your brain, to your body. Maybe start to move the fingers and toes, wrists and ankles. Maybe gently start to roll your head from side to side. Taking your hands onto your chest or your belly. bending your knees and sliding the soles of the feet onto the floor. And gently easing to your side. And from side lying, find your way up to seated, again, minimizing any disturbances to the brain or body. And once you're seated, joining the hands together in front of the heart. Just take a moment to pause and notice how you feel the effects of your practice. Take a moment to give thanks. And we'll take a deep breath in through the nose and let it go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right. See you guys hopefully next week. Have a good weekend. Bye.